Welcome back, guys, to Pirate Talk Radio. Hope everyone is doing well. I just got back and finished up MatsuriCon, a anime convention in Columbus, Ohio. So that was a lot of fun. I know, literally, don't ever ask me about anime. I know very little about anime, but I always like to go and support with the Extra Life charity, and we had a lot of fun. Saw a lot of great costumes. Obviously, One Piece being a pirate anime that I've seen the live action. I haven't watched any of the actual episodes, right? The anime episodes, but I have seen the live action. I'm sure there's a lot of anime folks that listen or watch this show. So don't roast me. Don't. I don't have the time to watch these ridiculously long episodic shows, even though I know they're fantastic. I've seen clips and things like that, but I know they're absolutely fantastic. But I haven't had a chance. But I have watched what is it? I've watched the live action One Piece. I've watched Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, and I watched Sword Art Online. I know there's a lot of uh, issues that people bring up with Sword Art Online, but I enjoyed it just because I'm an MMO person that plays a lot of EverQuest and things like that. So it was right up my alley. But I know there's a lot of um, bad blood against Sword Art Online. I think the first season was good. The second two I think started to fall off, but I enjoyed the first one. I at least enjoyed the first one. Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood was really good. I've seen Avatar: The Last Airbender. I know that was a Nickelodeon, and some people don't necessarily consider that an anime. I don't know what the definition is. Look, it's animated, and it's like it's a cartoon. And I know there's an actual definition. Again, please don't. I'm sure people are going to roast me, but that's fine. I've seen Pokemon. I think. I mean, heck, that's right from Japan, right? So that counts. I think. But yeah, I am not an anime watcher. I am not an anime person. But I do enjoy seeing all the cosplays because people put a lot of time in this. And also, I was at Hocking Hills Medieval Fest in Logan, Ohio, the week before, which was a lot of fun. It was hotter than hell outside, but I got dressed up for that. Had a great time seeing some of the full combat and some of the musical guests. Had some mead, which is always nice. And then next weekend, I will be at Ohio Renaissance Fair over in Williamsburg, over by Dayton, Ohio, somewhere out that way. Um, Looking forward to that. Always go to that every single year. Have a good time always at that show. Seeing all the people, seeing all the amazing outfits that people come up with, seeing all the shows. I think it's fantasy weekend next weekend. I do enjoy some pirate weekend, right? Because you see some really good pirate cosplays, but or outfits. So I think I'm probably going to take two outfits, just because of the heat. And then also, I think it's supposed to rain one of the days, so having a backup. Probably take pirate for Sunday because of the rain on Saturday. Don't want to take my cutlass out in the rain, just because dealing with wet steel, keeping it from tarnishing and things like that is just not fun. So we'll see though. We'll see. I know the heat's supposed to break in that area this week, so hopefully, fingers crossed, it'll be a nice weekend. But let's talk some Sea of Thieves. So obviously not last weekend because I was out, but or no, last weekend I did play. This weekend I was out, and next weekend I'll be out. So no streams on Saturday for Sea of Thieves, the live sale for Pirate Talk Radio that happens every Saturday. But I did get to play last weekend, and I am going to talk about my experience because there was some challenges, and based on what's making its rounds on social media and what's making its rounds on Reddit and the community, and again the verbose people out on Twitter and Reddit and things like that. They're the vocal minority, right? In general, most folks enjoy the game. They understand the limitations of the game. They understand understand that it's not a perfect game by any stretch of the imagination. And unfortunately, as we've all talked about, Rare does not help themselves as far as making things a better long term, right? They might fix something temporarily, but then immediately something else is broken, or very soon after they fix something, it just gets broken again, which doesn't help that narrative. And we're going to talk a little bit about that too, because we just had Fight Nights, which was their attempt to get more people to do Hourglass, which it appears that more people did do Hourglass. Unfortunately, there were a lot of issues that we'll dive into, and the big one is cheaters. They're out and in force again. It was one of those things. Easy anti-cheat is obviously an industry standard out there. Unfortunately, though, I don't know if it's the way it interacts with Sea of Thieves. I don't know if it's the version that they implement, but it doesn't seem to be catching, even basic things. I know I saw some posts from people, just basically they get kicked off of a server, triggering easy anti-cheat from alt tabbing to adjust their volume in Windows. But then you've got blatant cheaters just teleporting all around the place, teleporting on your boat, killing you before you even break the wave. So we'll dive into that a little bit, but definitely not a good showing this weekend, I don't think, with the servers and the cheaters. And then also I don't engage with it, but obviously I read it and try to keep up on it. Some drama out there as well, as always in video gaming, revolving around the Insiders program. So we'll dive into that as well. And I also want to talk about something that has been a reoccurring theme from people at like Fest of Legends and Sea of Thieves Fest, asking questions to Mike Chapman and the team. New content versus bug fixes, and the stance that Rare has taken, where they can't dedicate all their time to bug fixes and server performance because ultimately people will complain there's nothing to do. So they have to come out with new stuff for people to do. And I want to dive into that idea of content. And I actually labeled this episode, I don't know if it'll be the actual title of the episode, but content versus content, right? And kind of the definition of what content is, and more so me diving into what I see Rare is, labeling as content, which in my mind, the way they're labeling their content it really doesn't keep people busy, because it's not engaging for a long period of time unless you're an achievement hunter. So we will dive into all those things and more, but first I want to take the moment, as we do every episode, and thank our glorious patrons who spend their hard-earned money keeping my mouth moving, both on stream and for this podcast. So take a moment to thank Big Bad Pad, L Cute, and I Geffis. Thank you for your continued support of this podcast. Again, if you are interested in supporting the podcast and my content, please check out patreon.com/DavramTV. And there's a variety of different tiers that you can subscribe to. And on a certain tier, you get a holiday card from me. And this year, for anyone who has met that incentive by the holidays, you will also get it's called a parachute cord. It's just a little piece of cloth, nice heavy duty. I've got them on all my bags. Piece of cloth. It'll have your gamer tag on one side, and I'll have Pirate Talk Radio on the other. My bags have them. It says Davram on one side, and then it says Pirate Talk Radio on the other. So that is a bonus perk. It's not going to be listed on the Patreon. It's just for you folks who are listening and then subscribe. But again, you need to get in within the next couple months, because there is, I think, a 2-month period that you need to be subscribed before you can collect that incentive. But subscriptions start as low as $1 a month, and every dollar really does matter to keep all this technology, the fees for uploading and stuff going. So again, appreciate those folks who continue to support my content. All right, so let's dive into my experience about a week ago, 2 weeks ago, can't remember. I think it was a week ago, with these changes. So they came out with a patch, right? The patch adjusted the blunderbuss. It made a couple other changes. Made it so you can't, change the flag on the burning blade if you're under attack, and kind of tried to even that out. However, and again, I don't know if this is a bug, if this is intended. I've been on the burning blade before. I have, piloted the burning blade before. It was a lot of fun. It felt very powerful. But when we were fighting this crew on the burning blade, they proceeded to do multiple anchor turns, and you could tell they were doing anchor turns because the boat would be going in one direction, and it's just like, it's actually harder to turn than a galleon. I always call it the big bitch turn because it takes a long time to get that turn, right? It's like a big truck or a, giant boat. And it takes a long time to make those turns. So you can tell it does an anchor turn because it's going in one direction, then all of a sudden it lurches and then it's going in a different direction. However, what I noticed was on this ship, which was definitely at least a brigantine crew, because I was able to get aboard, kill 3 people, and I only saw 3 distinct names. So I assume it was a brigantine crew. Could have been a galleon crew, obviously. Could have been a crew where it was only a 3-man galleon or a 4-man galleon and they lost a player. I don't know. But it was definitely at least a brigantine crew. And what I noticed was every time they did an anchor turn, they did not actually, it seemed like, fully stop. Or if they did fully stop, they were moving again within a matter of like a second and a half. Which doesn't make much sense when it comes to that particular boat. I understand that boat is designed to scale based on players. However, if you're having a massive powerhouse of a boat like that, you shouldn't be able to stop, change directions with an anchor turn, and then immediately start moving again. And we were in a brigantine, and I do say that we're pretty good on the sails. We're pretty good at maneuvering a brigantine. We've piloted a brigantine together for quite some time, and it seemed like every time we were getting in a good position to make an attack on them, they would anchor turn and immediately start moving again in a different direction. And it was just like, it was crazy fast how they did it. I remember getting on board, killing 2 of the 3. And I dropped their anchor, and the 3rd person killed me. And before I even spawned in the ferry, that boat was moving again, and that anchor definitely hit the bottom. My crew saw the boat stop, but it was like, stop and go. Right. It was really weird. So I don't know if there's a bug going on right now with the burning blade, but what it feels like is, the anchor, regardless of crew size, is set to sloop speed, which is not good. That is not good. If you can anchor turn with a crew of 4 or a crew of 3, and you're at sloop speed to get that anchor back up, is insane. I mean, it should even be, if you're a solo player, it should be slightly slower than sloop speed anyways. Not slow as brigantine speed with 1 player, but it should be a little bit slower than sloop speed. I know it's supposed to adjust based on crew size, which makes complete sense, but it should be a little slower. I mean, that thing is massive, and it is a powerhouse of a weapon. It should not be able to move and stop and move again that quickly. So that was kind of weird. It was very frustrating. It was very hard to really get in a good naval position against it, just because of the quick anchor turn and move again. It was actually kind of crazy. Combat during this play session, after they adjusted the blunderbuss, felt really bad. Specifically, the sword block was not working. I was literally backed into a corner with my block up, had my block up, people just, one guy just swinging at me. I was trying to block with the sword play counter, and he was just slicing through my block. He wasn't jumping. He was just facing me straight on, just, M1 spam, M1 spam, M1 spam. And my block did not trigger one time, which is a very frustrating thing, because not too long ago, we had a sword that was in a pretty good position where we were able to have good sword play and we were able to have a good time. with the sword, and the sword seems to be back in a bad state. There's a lot of memes out there on the Twitters now where it's like the blunderbuss has been buried and the sword is now the new thing. Why? Because if your block doesn't work, well, what are you going to do? You can't one blunder them. If your block doesn't work, you're just going to be sword chumped to death. And like I was trying to eat, I was food spamming, like literally pineapple spamming. And the pineapple spam was not good enough to stop a single player from just sword. It was like the sword was actually like it's supposed to give you a little bit of a stun or whatever, but it was actually stopping me from eating. Like I was sitting there, not munch while I was running, munch and run, and it was literally still stopping me from doing that. And it was just ungodly bad. It just felt bad when block doesn't work and you can't eat through the sword spam. Like what are you supposed to do in those instances? And it just goes along the case. And again, I know Mike said that they're going to have a team in place. It should be in place now. That's going to be really looking at combat. Well, they have a lot of work to do because the Sea of Thieves just hasn't found that consistent rhythm in fixing combat, balancing the weapons together, and keeping it that way for a long period of time. They get it fixed for a couple weeks, maybe a couple months, and then it's broken again, and it feels bad, and then it's back on the chopping block and taking resources and time away from them to either do new content or other bug fixes. That has to be extremely frustrating, and it's something that, again, I attribute to the leadership, the high-end leadership over there at Rare. It's like, guys, if we fix something, it has to stay fixed for an extended period of time. It can't break. And I understand the code is massive. I understand that it's entwined with each other, and I understand that they don't probably fully grasp when they do something, what overarching issues they have down the line. Like I get it. That code base is massive. It's spaghetti code. It's a mess. But it's just like, if you fix something, you gotta keep it fixed. And even things like, you come up above the waves from a dive, and then your boat kind of just keeps dropping into the sea and then bouncing up and dropping into the sea and bouncing up. And I saw a tweet from Chapman that's like, hey, we understand it's an issue, but it's a little bit more complicated than that. It's like, well, here's the thing. Your game is about sailing. Your game is about fighting. Yeah, it's not a first-person shooter, but the more and more you do things, the more and more you're pushing that PvP side of the game, even though it's a shared adventure, PvE versus PvP. It's got it both in there, but the burning blade and hourglass, and the more you're doing things like that, the more you're pushing that PvP aspect. And when your combat systems are broken and they can't be fixed, and your boats are sinking beneath the waves, or the waves aren't moving, or whatever the case may be, that aspect of the game feels bad, and it's just not enjoyable. Like I found myself on streams the past couple times, within an hour or 2 hours, I am so frustrated with how the game is performing. You can see it in my face. You can see it in the stream. I am not having a good time. And sure, it's a video game. I understand that I need to laugh it off and laugh at the absolute joke code that this game has at times. It's just so hard when you're trying to accomplish something, when you know that your crew is good and you're trying to fight, and just the game is fighting against you. So not only are you going against, decent players or good players, but then you also have the game fighting against you, and it's just a miserable experience when that happens. And it doesn't happen all the time, but it's a majority of the time that this kind of stuff is happening, and it's just really frustrating. And like I said, I love this game. Hell, I've got merch everywhere. You can't see the shelf, but there's a whole Sea of Thieves shelf. I love this game. I think it's great, but they just are not able to execute things, and they put out these hot fixes. And Drew Stevens said it perfectly. It's becoming a meme. It's past becoming a meme. Their development and things like that. And I know it hurts them to see that stuff, but the only thing that's going to fix that is the executive leadership over there actually taking action and getting this stuff solved, because it's absolutely ridiculous. There needs to be something. There needs to be accountability. There needs to be something over there in the Rare Studios that's like, guys, we have to stop this bullshit. We have to stop this garbage. We have to put out Quality code that lasts and sticks. And if we can't, then we need to reevaluate the either one, the people who are making the decisions around what is being prioritized and what's not, or two, we need to get folks in there who actually can make a difference in this code and make it long-term fixable. And like I've said multiple times, I never advocate for people to lose their job, but at some point when you're in a business and you are in a competitive market of video gaming and your job is to keep asses in seats, you've got to make those decisions, and people have to be accountable for poor performance. And in my opinion, there is a very lax culture over there around that style of accountability, and it really needs to stop. I'm trying to pull up. I should have pulled this up ahead of time. Um, and hopefully based on some of the based on some of the recent tweets, watch, I'm probably going to get banned from this because someone was talking about the overall Steam, when Steam was released again. It's a small percentage of the player base, but but the overall downward turn of Sea of Thieves on some of these updates is just crazy when you look at Steam. And there's a big drop off here at the end of September, or at the end of August going into September, just a massive drop off in players. The all-time peak for players on Steam, keep in mind this does not play into Xbox, which is where the majority of players come from, is the Xbox, or if you're playing on PC, the Xbox app on the PC, not through Steam. But you're talking in the past 4.3 years, which is rough, which is what their data shows on here. 66,906 people was the peak over the past 4.3 years on Steam. 24-hour peak, 12,826. Currently playing at the time of this recording, just over 6,000. And it's just, you can really take a look. You're talking, let's go back to the beginning of the year. We saw a huge increase of players, or an increase of 32% in players in January. Swift drop off of 10% in February. Slight gain, 2% in March. Big gain in April. Again, we look at when those updates hit, right? So 35% in April. May was at 2%. So they had a couple about 3 months there of at least some sort of positive gain. Then June, negative 9% growth. July, negative 26% growth. Past 30 days, currently trending negative 9% growth. So it's like they get those peaks on update times, and then people just go away because they run into bugs. They run into issues, they run into combat, and it's like, or the content, which we'll get to here in a moment, it doesn't live up to their expectations, right? It's nothing really to cry home about and say, hey, this is amazing. Now, given we can also look at the overall Steam rating from players who are playing the game, it's a very positive rating. People do enjoy this game. 88% of people find this game to be positive, right? There are 303,000 reviews, so that's 89% of reviews are positive, only 10% negative. So I mean, that's still pretty good. That's actually extremely well when you're talking about Steam. The game has been out for 6 years, and that's pretty good that we're still seeing a 88 to 89% approval rating of players. But again, when you look at these massive drop-offs, 20+% of players dropping in a month, that is a ridiculous number, and they really have to clean up the code if they want people to stay around, and they have to really look at that content that they're putting out. Let's take this season, for example. Let's look at the content that we got for this season. We got the Burning Blade. Oh, did you expect me to list more? No, we got the Burning Blade. Yes, we got the skeletal forts as well, but we got the Burning Blade. The skeletal forts, though cool, though fun to interact with the kind of a tip of the cap and going back in time, looking at the constellations and kind of matching those up and having a little fight there with the things and the orbs. That's what we got. We got a couple forts that give us an orb, and we got the Burning Blade, which is a world event. It's not always up. It is contested. It is a PvP focused event. And I know Rare's going to say, no, it's a PvE event. No, it's a PvP event, period, end of story. It is contested by players because of the power it has over other players. That is what it is. It is a PvP world event, period, end of story. And yes, you can go do your little things and pledge to Flameheart and upgrade. But think about it. When I played the first time after this update hit, within 1 hour, I had completed all of the skeletal forts. I believe it was within 1 hour. Completed all of the skeletal forts around the map. Wind was good, but maybe it was 2 hours. But either way, I had completed all that content. And then, I got on the Burning Blade and I was able to play around with it for a couple hours. But within one play session, 2 hours, I was able to do all of the new content. And sure, I'm sure Rare is going to say, well, you haven't done it all because you haven't completed the commendations. I don't give two flying fucks about your commendations. Your commendations are literally forcing me to do the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over to get a check mark. At one point, I cared about those check marks. I do not care about those check marks anymore because the game quality is so low when it comes to server stability and combat. It is a miserable experience to sit there and try to grind those all out. If you look at the Burning Blade, many of the commendations around the Burning Blade are PvP oriented. You still have people who run. You still have a massive issue with cheaters. You have a lot of challenges with your PvP, and most of the commendations are PvP oriented with the Burning Blade. That is the content that we have for 3 months. And I'm sorry, going after those check marks of number of orbs done and going after, Athena ships, if you can find one, going after and raising your tribute and all that stuff. It's miserable, but that is the content that Rare puts out. It's just like when they put out Tall Tale Monkey Island. That was a decent amount of time. Those were longer tall tales, just like A Pirate's Life. And, it took me, 8 hours less, when I was hanging out and chilling with people to get through all of those. But then it's done. 8 hours of content for an entire season. And again, they're going to come back and Rare's going to come back and say, no, we added these commendations and you need to do. No, that is not content. It is a type of content. It is not lasting gameplay content. I know I've stopped playing Destiny for a variety of reasons that don't have to do with the story and stuff, but when Destiny comes out with a new season or a new content, there's a whole new activity where you can play the activity and get cosmetics and get unlocks and things and weapons and stuff. And I understand that the difference between Destiny and Sea of Thieves is night and day when it comes, because you got to grind out weapons in Destiny. But there's also cosmetics. But that's the kind of stuff, some sort of event that you can enjoy playing over and over and over again. And you're not just chasing a check mark on the Burning Blade looking for an Athena ship. Like, that's the thing. Now, what I will say on the flip side of that is Rare does leave it up to the players in order to make your own content. Heck, look at some of your streamers out there. You've got Hitbo, which is a fantastic dude. He makes content daily on stealing Athena chests. It's hilarious, some of the things he's come up with. That's content. Now, is that content that Rare has made? No, that is content Hitbo is making based on what Rare has put out. Let's look at someone like Boxy Fresh, who does goofy PvP stuff all the time, cracks you up, has a great time out there, behaving Beardly, Beardageddon. Even if you're a fan of Kabobbles or Pace, there are a lot of content creators out there. Are they playing the Burning Blade over and over again? No. Are they doing the skeletal forts for the orbs over and over again? No. They're creating their own content based on what Rare has put in the game. What Rare puts in the game is maybe a couple hours a season of actual content. That's all they're giving you. Probably less than 5 hours of actual content, unless you're a checkmark chaser. That's all they've given you. That is the new content that they are prioritizing over fixing server stability, over fixing combat, over fixing all this other stuff. They give you about, just under 5 hours of content each season. That's it. If you want more content, you have to do things like what Hitbo is doing. You have to do things like Boxy. You have to do things like these streamers are doing. Hell, I just saw a streamer the other day that spent an entire stream in the Monkey Island Tall Tale catching over 2,000 red herrings, and they were flying into space and making all this crazy cool like visual effects and stuff like that. That's not something that Rare is giving you. That's something that you, the player, are creating. And that's the thing that always frustrates me when Mike comes out and says, hey, we have to give you new content or players get bummed out and upset. We can't just spend all this time fixing bugs. Well, Mike, with all due respect, players are already getting burned out within the first month of your new content. I'm over the Burning Blade already. I could care less if I got on that thing ever again. I got on it once. I sailed around. I did a couple tributes. I'm over it. I'm done with it. It looks cool. It's cool to pilot, but dealing with cheaters and hackers and the poor combat, I don't want to deal with that thing. I see it up in the horizon. It's like, whatever, let's go do something else, because dealing with that thing, with the fast anchor raises and with cheaters, with hackers, and just the overall combat performance and server stability, I don't want to deal with it. I got my 2-3 hours on the Burning Blade. I'm done with it. I'm done with it. I don't care about your check marks. I don't care about your commendations. I've done all the skeletal forts for the orbs. I've done them all. They're all the same. They look different on the outside, but they're all identical on the inside. You do one, you've done them all. But I did each and every one of them, got the orb out of all of them, sold it, whatever it is. I've done it. But you do one, you've done it all. If you boil this particular season down to hours of actual content, you can complete one of those skeletal things in about 15 minutes. If the Burning Blade is up, you get on board, you kill the skeletons, you put a couple holes in it, you sink it, you claim it. You probably have, at max, an hour of new Sea of Thieves provided content in this 3-month season. Maybe an hour. Now, if you're going after check marks, that's a different story. But as far as what they've provided, something new to interact with in the world, it's maybe an hour. It's maybe an hour. And think over the past couple seasons, what they've added and how many actual hours of new content they're actually giving you. So it's very frustrating for me to hear when the studio comes out and says, well, we've got to give you new things to do, or you're going to, or people are going to leave the game, so we can't focus on bug fixes. You already don't give us enough new stuff to do, and you're not fixing bugs. So I don't know what this new content thing it is. Maybe it's you're expecting us to create those stories like Hitbo is, like Boxy Fresh is, like the streamers catching red herrings. Maybe that's your objective. And I've always said that Sea of Thieves is a choose your own adventure story, and you should make the story that you want, but not everybody is in that. And you can look in the Steam charts. And again, Steam is not the mass, it's a very small percentage of the player base, but we don't see the Xbox numbers. But trends are trends. If Steam is going this way, really steeply, that means Xbox is going this way, really steeply, because players are players, regardless if you're playing on Xbox, PC through Xbox, or PC on Steam, or PlayStation. If players are leaving one platform, they're leaving all the platforms. And sure, I see on Twitter that some people got banned for talking about Steam charts. I don't really care. If they slap me on the wrist, they ban me for talking about it. I don't care. I personally think it's my job to discuss these type of things when you run a podcast like this. But at the end of the day, when you see a spike in players, when you come out with a new update, and by 1 month, all those players and more are gone, that tells you something. That tells you your game is not in a good place. It excites people to come back to check out the new stuff, and then they're gone because the new stuff does not hold their attention or the servers are garbage. Let's look at next season, for example. Season 14, right? Season 14. We get a new harpoon gun. I'm sure there are going to be more things, but this is a tool season, which means we're probably not going to see anything new as far as events to do and things like that. Don't know. They haven't released the trailer or anything, but I would guess that they're going to, basically give us the new harpoon gun, and that's probably about it. So how much actual new content per mic? They're giving us new things to do. How much engaging new content for players who are not chasing check marks or players who don't have it in their mindset to build their own story? They want to play something that the game is giving them to play. How much time is that? I log in, I get my new harpoon gun, and I'm done. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's what we're talking about here. That's not 3 months season. That's not 3 months worth of content. That's not 2 months worth of content. That's not even 1 month worth of content. That's maybe an hour of goofing around, and then you're done. So in the past couple seasons, we've had, again, unless you're checkmark chasing, we've had maybe an hour of new content. And that's why we see players leaving at the rate that they do after a new season launches, because quite frankly, the content Sea of Thieves is producing, though very cool, is not lasting. It's not lasting whatsoever. If you're a player like a streamer, or you're a player like someone who's chasing check marks, or someone who enjoys building their own story, or has a great community they're playing with, it doesn't matter if they don't put any content in. You're going to find fun with the people you play with. You're going to find magic and hilarious moments, stealing chests or whatever. And that's great. But for every player, for the average player, that's not going to keep them interested. Not when you have games like Destiny with a whole bunch of stuff to do and raids to do. Not when you've got games like World of Warcraft that has constant new stuff coming out and things to engage with and things to grind, which are not just achievements or check marks, but actual cosmetics and things like that to grind. Like, and Sea of Thieves does have cosmetics to grind, but again, I'm not going to sit here after I've already done 50 Reaper chests before you release the next achievement of 50 Reaper chests. I'm not going to sit here and grind out 50 more Reaper chests just because in your system you can't go back and see how many Reaper chests I've done and proactively give them to me. That's frustrating. I've done it already. Why are you making me do it again and calling it new? It's not new. It's not new. It's rebranding what you've already had there to try to get me to play more. And I'm not doing it. And other players are not doing it. And it's very frustrating. They really need to get their heads out of their asses and back on that whiteboard and figure out what can we do to excite players and keep them engaged. And I'm telling you right now, though the forts look cool, though the little event is cool with identifying the constellations and all that stuff, you do one, you've done them all. So why did you make 6? Why did you put 6 around the entire world? I think there's 6. I think there's 2 per area. Why did you put 6? Just put 1 in. You do 1, you've done them all. Sure, they all look different, but you've done 1, you've done them all. So why did you put 6 in there? Give people more opportunities to get orbs, I guess. I give people more opportunities to sail the burning blade around. And why? You put 1 in, you've done them all. You don't need 6. I don't need 6. Now make them each different. Make them each have different bosses. Make each of the bosses have different mechanics. Make the skeletons do different things. Make the inside of the thing look significantly different. Kegs dropping from the ceiling. I don't know. Maybe make 1 underwater where the thing floods and you have to kill sirens like the thing, and you mix some stuff up. I don't know. But when you make 6 of the exact same copy paste, basically, it's not new content. It's just laziness, and it's boring. It is boring. And that's where we are right now. That is the content that Sea of Thieves is feeding us. And calling it, hey, this is the best we can do instead of fixing servers and bugs. We can't spend all that time doing that because you guys need some new stuff. Yeah, but what you're giving us is boring and doesn't last very long. It's just how it is. Unless you're someone in the mindset who is okay with grinding check marks, or someone who has a crew or a community who enjoys just doing things over and over and over again. But it's not sustainable. It's not long lasting, and that's why we see players going away. And that's why just when I played with the just what a week or so ago, the servers felt dead. We didn't run into a lot of players because players are already fed up with the server performance, with combat, and they're already done and bored with the burning blade and skeletal little outposts. It's already over. This season's already over for a good chunk of players. So let's talk a little bit about fight nights. And it goes along with that last little bit. And that is, if you go on Reddit, if you go on to Twitter, you will see countless complaints, countless videos of just ridiculously unacceptable server performance. People's boats staying under the water, issues with weapons and guns and sword, and cheaters. Oh, the cheaters. People just appearing on your boat before you crest the wave, killing you. People, you're in a cannon fight, and then someone just appears on your boat. Literally, you're going over to the barrel to pick out more cannonballs, and not coming up the ladder, someone just poof right there in front of you, kills you, and poof, they're gone. It's blatant cheating that even though they have easy anti-cheat, it's not doing its job. And I don't know how much Rare spent on easy anti-cheat. I don't know what they have to do on their side to make it better, or if there's anything they can do to make it better. But easy anti-cheat is clearly not working. We saw a decrease of cheaters when easy anti-cheat came in, but clearly now the people are figuring out ways around it. And easy anti-cheat is a big organization. They provide the anti-cheat for Fortnite. I don't see people tweeting Fortnite constantly about cheaters and hackers and all that stuff. But sure enough, in Sea of Thieves, you can't go a day without following Sea of Thieves Twitter without seeing countless, I'm going to say hundreds of posts and videos about cheaters. And that is a problem, especially with the population base of Sea of Thieves. And again, I don't know how much Rare can do about it with easy anti-cheat being their foundation, but it's bad. And it is causing a very bad reputation with both long-term and new players to the game. It's not good. It's not pretty. It's not a good look. And they've got to do something about it very, very quickly, because people were leaving in droves back when it was a problem before easy anti-cheat. People are going to, if they haven't already, leaving in droves. I mean, like I said, 26% reduction last month in players from the Steam charts. I'm sure that equates to roughly the same percentage or around the same percentage on PlayStation and on Xbox. I'm sure it does, even though we can't see those numbers. And it's just bad. It's bad for a game that's been out for 6 years, and it's this blatant, especially with a game who just implemented an industry standard anti-cheat. It's just not working, and it's just a bad look. And then finally, a lot of drama around bans right now, specifically around insiders. I talked last episode about when you sign things, you sign in user license agreements, and how you've signed it away. It's saying that you are not going to, in any way, shape, or form, break these rules, right? That's what you do when you sign a end user license agreement. That's what you sign away when you sign an NDA. Well, guess what? Players are breaking the NDA of insiders. They're starting to share things that are going on in insiders out there, making comments about they disagree or they agree with the direction, whatever the case may be, and they're getting banned for for it. Based on the rules, that's absolutely accurate. They should be banned for breaking non-disclosure agreements. I mean, hell, there have been times in my professional career where I had to sign an NDA and can't talk about certain things that my company is doing. Or when I leave a company, I sign an NDA, I can't talk about what I was working on. Or I can't, non-compete NDA where I can't not only talk about what I was doing, but I can't go work for certain companies because they're either a direct competitor or they're a client or something like that. When you sign that, that's a legal agreement. I had a vendor that I worked with for many years, and this particular rep that I really enjoyed and really did a good job, working on my account and really did a good job, improving the quality of that company with us. He left the company under his own accord and had to sign a non-compete and an NDA. He couldn't even talk to me out, a friend or person could not talk to me whatsoever. Didn't know how he was doing, didn't know how his new company was doing, didn't know anything. And just got a call from him last week saying, "Hey, how you doing?" Wanted to check in. I'm like, "Where the hell have you been?" And he's like, "Sorry, I signed a non-compete NDA that banned me from speaking to anyone that I had worked with as a client." And I'm like, "Oh, well, okay, understand. Those are legal agreements, just like you're signing the NDA to play Insiders. There are rules, and part of those rules is you can't discuss with anyone at any time what goes on in Insiders, what code is in Insiders, what events are in Insiders. You can't talk about Insiders whatsoever. Not to your family, not to your friends. That's what you sign away. Now, do people do it? Absolutely, people do it. There's whole discords out there with like chat rooms dedicated to what they found in Insiders. Absolutely, it happens. I don't take part in Insiders, and I don't look at any of those discords. I don't even have one in my Discord because I don't want to know what's coming. I want to be surprised when it comes out and when I get to engage with it. I know a lot of people who do Insiders, and they'll say something about, well, I'm like, no, first off, you can't talk about it. Secondly, I don't want to know. But yeah, it just happens. But when you start posting videos, when you post pictures, when you start talking out on Twitter, regardless if you say it's on Insiders or not, guess what? Rare knows what's on Insiders and what isn't. You should be banned. Now, let's take a step back and let's look at something I saw Hitbo mention, which I agree with and have talked about many times. I don't think Insiders should exist. I think they should turn Insiders into a public test realm, just like World of Warcraft has, just like so many other games have, and stop hiding things. I understand that they want players to test. I understand they want some secrecy. I understand they want people to be surprised. I understand all that. Make it a public test realm. Let people talk about it. Get the feedback out there from the entire community, from some of these people who like to post things. Get some feedback out there and listen to it. Because how many times have we seen, when it comes to insiders who spend legit time testing this stuff, legit time providing feedback, and Rare legitimately just doesn't listen to it and puts out crap, which the insider says, "Hey, this is going to happen if you do this." They're like, whatever, it's already too late in the development period, we're going to put it out anyways, and it turns to crap. It happens all the time. So if you're not going to get stuff into the insiders' hands and listen legitly to what they have to say, players are going to be players, and I promise you, players will find ways to break things. You should be utilizing that feedback from your insiders in order to show them what is going on and what that you can do to fix stuff. And if you're not listening to it, then just get rid of insiders, make it a public test realm, let people talk about it, get feedback from the influencers you have out there, from your streamers to just your Twitter warriors out there. Get the feedback that way. It's more legit. People are going to point out things, probably in terms and using words that aren't probably very friendly, but guess what? Feedback is feedback, and that way you can listen to it. But I don't think Rare wants to go that direction because they love to have surprises in whatever they do. The problem again comes down to their content. Their surprises anymore are kind of hypey and then empty. Once it comes out, like the Burning Blade, it's going to be this great event, it's going to be amazing. And well, it's cool looking, but it's it's lackluster. It's boring. It's like saying I want a gourmet sandwich and someone gives me Wonder Bread and Skippy peanut butter. That's it doesn't matter how which way you cut it. It might taste good, but that's not gourmet, right? You can make that peanut butter sandwich look like a damn pirate ship. But guess what? It's still Wonder Bread and Skippy peanut butter. And that is what Rare is putting out. They're putting out these pictures of these glorious sandwiches. And then when we actually get it and it's in front of us, we cut into it, we take a bite, and we're like, Wonder Bread and Skippy peanut butter. And that's where it is. And they've got to do a lot more work in either creating content that's lasting and not just going for check marks or focusing on these bugs and things, because players are getting fed up with it. When I follow a lot of the major partners and streamers and I see them playing other games this soon into the season, that tells me something. That tells me that servers are bad, combat is bad, and the content is not lasting. So I'm not buying it anymore from Rare when they say we cannot spend this amount of time on bugs and server stability because we need to give you new content. If this is the quality of your new content, you might as well just focus on bugs and that stuff, and let the people who want new content leave, because they're going to leave anyways within a week of the new patch, because there's not enough stuff to keep them engaged. There you go, folks. I hope you are doing well. I hope you're all safe and sound. Take care of each other and yourselves, and I will see you next time on Pirate Talk Radio.